I told myself his protection was a temporary arrangement. A few days, maybe a week, until my ex stopped hunting me. But when Vincenzo Duca looked at me with his cold, dark eyes, my life split in two. People said he was a monster who destroyed everything he touched. Instead, he was the only one who made me feel secure. My son Luca even started calling him Papa. I was falling for a killer. The night Marco came back with a weapon, I knew I had a choice to make. Keep listening if you have ever had to choose between your safety and your soul. Before we begin, this story carries a powerful truth. The people who hurt us the most are often the ones who say they love us. And the ones who actually protect us are the ones the world warns us to stay away from. This is a story about survival, about the courage it takes to trust again, and about finding home in the most unlikely arms. If that message matters to you, subscribe now and stay until the very end, because this story will change the way you see love, danger, and second chances. I scrub the last table with too much force. The polished marble shows me a reflection I do not recognize. Her eyes are exhausted, her hair pulled back harshly. A faint purple bruise lives under her left cheekbone, a secret that makeup can no longer keep. The kitchen staff is gone. The large dining room is deserted, holding only the ghost of expensive wine and cologne. My phone screen shows 3 missed calls from the school, a text about the rent, another message I refuse to open. My stomach twists into a knot. I delete his words without reading them. I finish cleaning the bar and pull my coat from a hook. It smells like garlic and soap, but I put it on. The streets are not safe this late, and I need to get home to Luca. The back door opens into a narrow, dark alley filled with trash bins. The manager locked the front doors early tonight. A blast of cold air hits my face as I step outside, pulling my coat tighter around me. A figure detaches from the shadows. My heart stops. There you are. Marco emerges into the weak light from the street. His face is a mask of anger. He wears the same jacket from the night I ran, the night he broke 2 of my ribs. I move backward. My hand finds the door, but it is locked from the inside. I have been waiting, Marco said. Did you think you could just ignore me? I have nothing to say. My voice is surprisingly firm. You owe me 2,000 euros. He steps toward me. You remember that, do not you? I paid you. My gaze stays fixed on his hands. His hands always move first. You paid half of it, he said, stopping a few feet away. I need the rest. I do not have it. Then we have an issue. My back hits the cold brick wall. There is nowhere left to run. My phone is a dead weight in my pocket. Marco, please, I have to take care of Luca. You should have considered that before you left. He reaches for me. I twist away, but his fingers clamp down on my wrist. Pain flashes up. My arm. Let me go. Not until you listen to me. I pull with all my strength. My wrist comes free. I scramble for the door, but he grabs the back of my coat. I fall to the ground. Sharp pain explodes in my knee. Get up, Marco ordered. We need to talk. I get to my feet, blood trickling down my leg. I beat on the heavy door with both hands. Help me. Somebody please help me. The door does not move. The restaurant is silent. No one will hear me. Marco's hand closes on my throat. Not enough to stop my breath. Just enough to steal my hope. You are making this difficult. I claw at his hand, my vision starting to blur. I cannot think. Then the door swings open. Light spills into the alley. A man in a white chef's uniform is standing there. His eyes widen. What is going on here? The chef demanded. Marco, let's go. I collapse against the wall, fighting for air. This is not your concern, Marco said. She works for me. The chef looks at me. Elena, get inside now. I do not hesitate. I hurry past him into the kitchen, my legs shaking too much to stand. I hear angry, low voices behind me before the door slams shut. I lean on the counter, my throat on fire. My wrist is throbbing. I want to break down, but I cannot. Not in this place. The chef returns. Are you all right? I just nod. I am not all right. I have not been for a very long time. That man, Who was he? He is no one, I lie. Just an old acquaintance. He was hurting you. I am fine, thank you. He does not seem to believe me. You need to tell someone. The police, or Mr. Duca. My chest seizes at the name. Vincenzo Duca owns this place, and most of this city. Everyone knows what he is. I can handle this myself. Can you? I do not give him an answer. I walk away, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I sit in the empty staff room for 20 minutes, waiting for my heart to slow down. I check the fresh bruises on my wrist. 4 dark fingerprints are already forming. I pull my sleeve over them and return to the dining room. It is no longer empty. A man is sitting at a corner table. He wears a dark suit, his hair is dark. He is watching me. His gaze is cold and steady. I stop breathing. Vincenzo Duca. I have seen him here before, once a week. He always sits in this exact spot. He orders the same expensive wine. He never talks to anyone but his bodyguard. Tonight, there is no one with him. I pick up a cloth and pretend to clean a table. I keep my head down, hoping he will not see the marks on my face. Elena. His voice cuts through the quiet. It is low and full of authority. I stop moving. Yes, sir. Come over here. My body obeys before my mind can object. I walk to his table, each step feeling heavy. I stop a few feet from him. What can I do for you? Sit down. I am still on duty. Sit. It is a command, not a suggestion. I sink into the chair opposite him, my hands in my lap, refuse to meet his eyes. What happened in the alley? Vincenzo asked. It was nothing. Do not lie to me. My head snaps up. His eyes are sharp and dark. They miss nothing. I feel completely exposed. It was just a misunderstanding, I say. With the man who put his hands on you. He knows. Of course he knows everything that happens inside his own building. It has been handled. Has it? I stay silent. He leans back, one hand resting on the table. His fingers are long, with scars across the knuckles. There is no ring. Who is he? Vincenzo's voice is softer now, but still cold. My ex-boyfriend. And he is a problem for you. It is not your concern. You work in my building. He taps the table once. That makes it my concern. I shake my head. I can handle it myself. Can you? The same question the chef asked me. I am so tired of hearing it. Yes. Then tell me why you are trembling. I look down. My hands are shaking in my lap. I clench them into fists. I am fine, I say again. Thank you for asking. I begin to rise from my chair. His hand moves fast, not to grab me, but to block my way. Sit. I obey. He watches me for a long time. Then he takes out his phone and sends a message. A minute later, a large man in a black suit enters the room. A weapon is visible under his jacket. Rafa, Vincenzo said. Take Elena home. See that she gets inside. I do not need anyone to take me home, I protest. It was not a choice. Rafa gives a short nod. Yes, boss. I look back at Vincenzo. Why are you doing this? Because I am able to. He stands and adjusts his suit. And because nobody touches my people without facing the consequences. His tone is hard and final. A chill runs down my back. What are you going to do? I whisper. That will be up to him. He walks past me and out the front door, his steps echoing through the empty space. I watch him go, my heart pounding in my chest. Rafa clears his throat. Ready? I nod slowly. I get my bag and follow him outside. The drive is completely silent. Rafa does not speak. He just drives. I look out the window at the dark streets of Naples. They look beautiful and threatening at night. He stops in front of my apartment building. It is an old, broken-down place where the landlord never fixes anything. Thank you, I say. He does not reply. He just waits until I am safely inside before the car drives off. I climb the stairs to my apartment on the 3rd floor. My entire body aches. I unlock the door and go inside. Luca is sleeping on the sofa. A cartoon is playing on the television with no sound. My neighbor, Mrs. Torres, must have been here. I kneel next to him and brush the hair from his face. He is only 7 years old, but he has seen too much. His eyes open. Elena. I am right here, my love. I kiss his forehead. Go back to sleep. Are you okay? I am fine. He closes his eyes and drifts off. I place a blanket over him and go to the kitchen. A note from Mrs. Torres is on the table. He ate his food. Do not worry about payment. You look exhausted. I crush the paper in my hand. Everyone sees it. They see the fear and the tiredness I try so hard to hide. I drink a glass of water, leaning against the counter. My phone buzzes. Another text message. This is not over. Marco. I delete it and block his number. It is a small, useless gesture. I walk to the bathroom and look at my own reflection. The bruise on my face is darker now. The marks on my wrist are a deep purple. I look like a broken thing. I turn off the light and go to my room. Tomorrow has to be better. But it is not. The next morning, I wake up to the sound of someone pounding on my door. It is loud and filled with rage. I sit up, my heart hammering in my chest. Elena, open this door. It is Marco's voice. I fumble for my phone, my hands shaking as I try to dial. The phone rang twice before the door splintered open. I screamed. On the couch, Luca's eyes flew open with terror. Marco stood there, his face a mess of purple bruises and a split lip. Someone had hurt him badly. He snarled, his voice a low growl. You called Duca. You went to that monster. I did not call anyone. I moved between him and Luca. You have to go. Marco grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. Do you know what he did because of you? His men took me to an alley. They beat me until I was on the ground. Because you ran to him. I did not ask for that. He shoved me hard against the wall. A sharp pain shot through my shoulder. You think you are protected now? Luca began to cry, small broken sounds that tore at my heart. Please, I begged, not in front of him. Then you come with me. We finish this. I am not going anywhere. His hand drifted toward his waist. I saw the handle of a gun. It was small, black, and promised death. My lungs seized. Come with me, Marco repeated, or I will force you. I glanced at Luca, who was shaking on the couch. He has been silent for months, ever since his mother passed. He only has me. All right, I whispered. I will go, smart girl. He yanked my arm, pulling me away. I looked back at Luca. Stay right there. I will be back soon. The lie felt like poison on my tongue. Marco dragged me down the stairs and into the blinding morning light. He threw me into his car and the locks clicked shut. Where are you taking me? I asked. A place to talk. I knew he was lying. I pulled on the handle, but it was useless. He started the car. If you try to run, I will return for the boy. A cold dread filled me. Do not touch him. Then be quiet. I froze. My mind raced, searching for an escape. I had to get back to Luca, but Marco was armed and I was helpless. We drove for 10 minutes through streets waking up with life. Normal people lived here. No one even noticed us. He swerved into a dead-end alley behind a factory and killed the engine. Get out. I stayed put. He leaned over and forced my door open. Now. My legs trembled as I stepped onto the pavement. I searched for a way out, but he blocked the only path. You made me look like a fool, Marco said, stalking toward me. You made me weak. I did nothing. Your cowardice made you run to Duca. My voice trembled. I just wanted you to leave me alone. That time has passed. He raised the gun and aimed it at my heart. My world stopped. Marco, please. You are going to vanish, he said. When Duca wonders where you went, people will say you just left. No one will come looking. Someone will. Luca. He will be fine. No, he will not. Tears streamed down my face. He is a child. He already lost his mother. Do not take me from him too. A flicker of something crossed Marco's face. It was not pity, only a moment's pause. I took a step back. Stay put, he ordered. I turned and ran. A gunshot exploded behind me. The bullet slammed into the wall next to my head, showering me with brick dust. I kept running, my feet pounding on the concrete as Marco screamed curses behind me. Another shot rang out, much closer this time. I burst from the alley onto a busy street filled with honking cars. I did not stop running until my legs collapsed beneath me. I fell to the sidewalk, shaking and gasping for air. A sleek black car stopped beside me. The window lowered to reveal Vincenzo Duca. His expression was calm, but his eyes were filled with a dark fire. "Get in," he commanded. I did not hesitate. I scrambled into the car. The vehicle sped off. I glanced back to see Marco at the alley's entrance, his face contorted in fury before he disappeared from view. Vincenzo sat beside me, typing on his phone. "Thank you," I managed to say. "Where is the boy?" he asked without looking up. "He is at home, in my apartment." "Rafa," Vincenzo spoke to the driver. "Send a car to her building, 3rd floor. Retrieve the boy and bring him to my villa." "Wait," I said. "I have to go back." "The man who works for you just tried to end your life," Vincenzo stated coldly. "You are not going anywhere. But Luca, he will be safe." He finally turned to me. "You both will be, at my home." "I cannot do that. I do not know you. Then you will get to know me. That is not an option. It is now." He put his phone away. "You are under my roof now. You and the boy are my responsibility. I do not need your protection. You do not get a choice." I stared at him. His face was like stone. This was not a request. "I can handle myself," I insisted. "And how has that been working for you?" His words struck me hard. I looked at my scratched hands and the dark bruises on my wrist. My life was in pieces. "Fine," I said softly. "For tonight. Just until I can make a plan. We will see." The car entered a private road shrouded by thick, secretive trees. We approached a massive iron gate flanked by 2 guards who opened it the moment they saw Vincenzo. A white stone villa appeared, surrounded by perfect gardens. It was a fantasy, not a real home. "This is where you live?" I asked. "Yes. It is enormous. It has to be." The car stopped. Rafa opened my door after Vincenzo stepped out. I followed him, my body aching. An older woman with kind eyes and gray hair stood in the doorway. "Gianna," Vincenzo said, "please prepare 2 rooms, one for Elena and one for her nephew. He is on his way." Gianna simply nodded at me. "Welcome, thank you." I followed Vincenzo into a marble foyer. Everything was polished and perfect, from the art on the walls to the fresh flowers. "Your room is upstairs," Vincenzo said. "Gianna will show you. You will find clothes and a bathroom. Ask if you require anything else." "Why are you helping me?" I had to ask. He stopped and met my gaze. "Because when the people I cared about needed help, no one was there," he said softly. "I will not allow that to happen again." Before I could say a word, he turned and walked down a long hall. I was left alone in this strange, beautiful house, waiting for Luca and wondering how this had become my life. Gianna gently touched my arm. "Come, I will take you to your room." I followed her, my legs heavy and my mind blank. She opened a door. The bedroom was lovely, with soft blue walls and a large bed. Gianna pointed to a door. "The bathroom is through there. I will return with some clothes for you. Do you need anything?" "No, thank you. Luca will be here very soon," she said with a reassuring smile. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat on the edge of the impossibly soft bed. Everything in the room was pristine and safe. That is when the tears started. I cried for all the fear I had held inside. I covered my mouth, trying to be silent. Sometime later, I heard a car outside, followed by small footsteps inside. I wiped my eyes and rushed to the door, pulling it open. Luca was standing at the top of the stairs, his small backpack on. His eyes were red from crying. "Luca," I called out. He ran into my arms, and I held him as tightly as I could. He did not make a sound. He never does. But he held on to me with all his might. "We are all right," I whispered. "We are safe." I said it for him, unsure if I believed it myself. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vincenzo watching us from the end of the hall. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something change in his expression. It was a flicker of softness, of humanity. Then it was gone. He turned and walked away. I brought Luca into the room and shut the door. He leaned against me on the bed, quiet and trusting. As the sun set, a deep quiet settled over the villa. For the first time in so long, I felt something other than constant terror. It was a confusing mix of relief and dread. I could not decide which was stronger. The next morning, I woke to absolute silence. There was no traffic, no shouting, no sirens. My heart pounded until I remembered where I was. Sunlight filled the room. The air smelled fresh and clean. The clock read 9 o'clock. I had not slept so late in years. I rose and checked on Luca in the next room. He was still asleep, curled up and peaceful. I closed his door and went to the bathroom. I put on a soft white robe and looked at my reflection. My cheek was bruised, and the marks on my wrist were a faint purple. I was exhausted, but I was alive. After splashing water on my face, I went downstairs. The kitchen was immense, with marble counters and steel appliances. Gianna was at the stove. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Did you rest well?" "Yes, I did. Please sit. I will make breakfast." "You do not need to do that. Mr. Duca insists." She pulled out a chair for me. "Please." I sat down. Hunger clawed at my stomach. I had not eaten since yesterday morning. Gianna placed a plate before me with eggs, bread, and fresh tomatoes. A small cup of coffee sat beside it. "This is too much," I said. She smiled. "Eat. You need your strength." I lifted the fork. The eggs were perfect. Each bite was something to be treasured. "Where is Mr. Duca?" I asked. "He left early for business." I asked what kind, but Gianna did not reply. She simply turned back to her work at the stove. Her silence was a clear warning. "Do not ask questions." After I finished, I offered to help. "No, you are a guest." But I did not want to be a guest. "Rest," Gianna insisted, taking the plate from me. "You need to heal." I nodded, but I felt restless. I felt like a captive. I explored the villa, room after beautiful room. The ceilings were high, the furniture expensive, but the luxury felt cold and empty. The house felt lifeless. At the end of one hallway, I discovered a study with its door left open. I knew I should not enter, but a strange pull drew me inside. Books covered the walls. A large desk stood in the middle, papers strewn across its surface. I saw a picture frame lying face down. My curiosity won. I picked it up and turned it over. The photograph showed a woman with dark hair and a brilliant smile. A little girl of about 4 sat in her lap, sharing that same happy expression. Vincenzo stood behind them, his hand on the woman's shoulder. He was smiling, a genuine smile I had never seen before. "What are you doing?" I spun around to see Vincenzo in the doorway. His face was a mask of cold anger. "I am sorry," I began. "Do not touch that." He closed the distance in 3 long strides and snatched the frame from my hands. "This room is private. I did not mean to intrude." He placed the frame face down again. His jaw was a hard line, his hands tightening into fists. "Who are they?" I whispered. "No one." They did not look like no one. His eyes, dark and dangerous, locked onto mine. "Get out." I fled the room, my heart hammering against my ribs. Back in my own room, I leaned against the door, trying to breathe. That woman and child were important to him, and they were gone. I spent the next few hours with Luca. We played simple card games and he drew with crayons Gianna had brought. He never speaks, but he hummed a little tune as he colored. It was the most I had heard from him in months. A knock at the door made us both jump. Gianna was there. "Dinner is ready," she said. "Mr. Duca requests your presence." I told her we could eat in our room. "He insists," she replied. "Of course he insists." I helped Luca put away his things, and we went downstairs. The dining room was vast, dominated by a long table set for 12 beneath a crystal chandelier. Vincenzo sat at the head of the table. He wore a simple black shirt and looked more relaxed, but his eyes were still cold. "Sit," he commanded. I sat across from him with Luca beside me. Gianna served a beautiful pasta, then quietly left the room. "Eat," Vincenzo said. I put food on Luca's plate first, then my own. Vincenzo just watched us, his own plate untouched. The silence was heavy and suffocating. "How old is the boy?" Vincenzo finally asked. 7. He does not speak. "No. Why not?" I put my fork down. He watched his mother die. It was a car accident 2 years ago. He has not said a word since. Vincenzo's expression remained unchanged, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a kind of understanding. "I am sorry," he said. "It is not your fault." Still. We ate without speaking for a moment. Then Luca pulled on my sleeve. He pointed at Vincenzo, then at his own plate. "He wants to know if you are going to eat," I explained. Vincenzo glanced at his full plate, then met Luca's gaze. For a brief second, the corner of his mouth turned up in a slight smile. "You are right," he told Luca. "I should eat." He took a bite of pasta. Luca smiled back, a small, shy smile that made my chest ache. I had not seen him smile in such a long time. "Do you like this place?" Vincenzo asked him. Luca nodded. "Good." Then Vincenzo looked at me. "You can stay here as long as you need. We cannot stay forever." "Why not? This is not our home." "It could be." I shook my head. "We do not belong here." "And where do you belong?" he challenged. "In that apartment where your ex can find you?" "I will figure it out." "Will you?" His tone was sharp. "He has a gun. He tried to end you. What makes you think he will stop?" "I will go to the police." "And say what? That a man threatened you?" "They will file a report and do nothing. You know this. I did know. The police do not help, not until it is too late." "Then what is your plan?" I asked. "You will stay here. I will handle it." "Handle it how?" His eyes were cold and final. "My way." A chill went through me. I understood what he meant. A man like him did not solve problems with words. "I do not want anyone hurt because of me," I said. "You should have considered that before you ran. I did not run to you. You found me. And now you are my problem to solve. I am not your problem." The words were sharper than I intended. Vincenzo's jaw clenched. He put down his fork. "You are right," he said softly. "You are not mine, but you are under my protection. That means I decide what happens. You cannot rule my life. Watch me." I shot to my feet, my chair scraping loudly on the floor. "We are leaving." "No, you are not. You cannot force us to stay." "Actually, I can." He stood up as well. "There are guards at every door. You will not get past the gate." "So we are prisoners?" "You are safe." "That is not the same thing." "It is close." "Enough." I took Luca's hand. "Come on." Luca looked frightened and confused. I hated scaring him, but I could not let this man take over our lives. Vincenzo moved to block our path. "Sit down." "Move, Elena." His voice softened slightly. "Please, sit down. Let us talk. There is nothing to discuss. There is everything to discuss." I wanted to fight, to push past him, but I was exhausted. I slowly sank back into my chair. Luca sat beside me, his eyes wide with worry. Vincenzo sat down and ran a hand through his hair. I am not trying to control you, he said. I am trying to keep you alive. Why do you care? The question hung between us. He looked at me, truly looked at me, before he answered. Because I could not save them, he said at last. My wife, my daughter. I could not save them. I will not fail again. My breath caught in my throat. The picture in his study, the woman and the little girl. They were dead. What happened to them? I asked gently. A car bomb. It was meant for me. His voice was hollow, devoid of emotion. They were in the wrong car at the wrong time. I was in a meeting. It was over before I even got there. I am so sorry. Do not be sorry. Just let me protect you. I did not know what to say. This cold, brutal man was hiding a grief that was so much like my own. Okay, I whispered. We will stay. For now. Thank you. Luca pulled on my sleeve again. He pointed at Vincenzo, then at his own chest, and made a scribbling motion in the air. He wants to draw you a picture, I translated. Vincenzo looked surprised. He wants to draw me? Luca nodded eagerly. Okay. Vincenzo's voice was softer, almost gentle. I would like that very much. Later, Luca sat on the floor of the living room with his crayons, drawing while Vincenzo sat perfectly still on the couch. I watched from the doorway, amazed. This man who commanded fear was sitting motionless for a 7-year-old boy. After 20 minutes, Luca held up his drawing. It was a stick figure in a black suit with dark hair and a tiny smile. That is very good, Vincenzo said, taking the paper with care. Thank you. Luca beamed with pride and ran to hug my legs. I stroked his hair as Vincenzo stood. He looked at the drawing, then at Luca, and a vulnerable look crossed his face. Good night, he said to both of us. Sleep well. He walked down the hall, the child's drawing still in his hand. I took Luca upstairs and tucked him in. He was asleep in minutes. I went to my own room, but my mind was racing. What would happen now? How long could we stay in this dangerous, safe house? And why did this broken man care so much? I stood at the window, looking out at the dark, silent garden below. Guards walk the property line, their eyes always moving. In a room across the garden, a light flicks on. It is Vincenzo's study. I see him through the glass, sitting at his desk. Luca's drawing is pinned on the wall, right next to a picture frame that is face down. He just stares at it. A knot tightens in my chest. This man is more than just a threat. He is shattered, just like me. That fact makes everything harder. 3 days go by. We settle into a strange rhythm. Gianna joins us for breakfast. Luca plays outside. I find small things to do around the house. Vincenzo leaves for most of the day. When he comes back, we have dinner in near silence. The talk is brief and cautious. On the 4th day, Gianna asks for my help with the laundry. I meet her in a room near the kitchen. You do not have to, she says. But I thought it might help to keep busy. It does. Thank you. We begin folding sheets. The work is simple. It is a relief to feel useful. How long have you worked for him? I ask. 15 years. Did you know his wife? Gianna's hands stop. Yes, Sophia. She was so kind and beautiful. She loved him deeply. What was she like? She was patient and strong. She saw the goodness in him when no one else could. Gianna folds another sheet. After she died, he was never the same. He grew colder, more distant. He keeps everyone away now. What about his daughter, Isabella? Gianna's voice softens. She was his entire world. He called her his light. When she was gone, that light went out. My throat feels tight. I am so sorry. We all are. Gianna looks at me. But you and Luca, you are different. He looks at you the way he used to look at them. That cannot be true. She offers a small smile. I have been here a long time. I see when things shift. And something has shifted. Her words follow me long after we finish. They echo in my mind. Something has shifted. That night, Luca wakes up with a scream. I race to his room. He sits straight up in bed. His eyes are wide and tears cover his face. It is all right. I am here. I sit down and pull him into my arms. It was only a dream. He shakes his head and points at the window. I look. There is nothing but dark woods. There is nothing out there, I tell him. You are safe. He does not believe me. He just trembles and holds on to me. A soft knock comes from the door. Vincenzo steps inside. He has on a simple t-shirt and pants. His hair is a mess, like he just woke up. What is wrong? He asks. A nightmare. He crosses to the window and looks out, then pulls the heavy curtains closed. There is nothing there, Vincenzo says. Only my guards. They will not let anyone get close. Luca looks at him. He is still afraid, but he is listening. Vincenzo sits on the bed's edge. Do you want me to tell you a secret? Luca nods. When I was your age, I was afraid of the dark too. Vincenzo's voice is soft. My father told me the dark is not scary, it is just the world sleeping. And while it sleeps, men like me stay awake. We watch to make sure nothing bad can happen. Luca studies his face. So if you feel scared in the night, just remember that I am awake. My men are awake. We are all watching. You are safe here. Luca's breathing starts to even out. He rubs his eyes. Then he reaches out his small hand and touches Vincenzo's. Vincenzo goes completely still. For a moment, I think he will pull his hand away. But he does not. He just sits there and lets Luca hold it. Better? Vincenzo asks. Luca nods. Good. Vincenzo gets up. Sleep now, both of you. He walks to the door, but he pauses and looks back. If he has another one, come and get me, he says. I will be up. Then he leaves. I lie down next to Luca. He curls into my side and is asleep in minutes. But I lie awake, thinking about Vincenzo. The way he spoke to a scared child. The way he let a 7-year-old hold his hand. This man is not just broken. He is trying to put the pieces of himself back together. And somehow, we have become two of those pieces. The next morning, Vincenzo is there for breakfast. He is usually gone by this time. Today he sits at the table with a newspaper and coffee. Good morning, I say. He glances up. Morning, sit down. I pour myself some coffee while Luca takes the seat next to me. Gianna serves pastries. I have something for you, Vincenzo says. He pushes an envelope across the table. I open it. It is full of cash, a huge amount, more than I earn in 3 months. What is this for? I ask. It is payment for the shifts you missed at your job. This is far too much. It is what you are owed, plus some extra. I cannot accept this. You already have. I slide the envelope back to him. I do not want your money. Then what is it you want? To be safe without being in someone's debt. You are not in my debt. His voice is firm. This is not a loan. It is a gift. I do not take gifts from men like you. Men like me? His eyes get sharp. What is that supposed to mean? You know exactly what it means. Say the word. You are in the Mafia. Ooh. The word itself feels heavy and dangerous. You harm people. You take whatever you want. You run everything. Is that what you believe? Is it not the truth? He puts his cup down and leans back. Yes, it is true. I harm people who deserve it. I take what belongs to me, and I control what I must. But I do not hurt the innocent, and I do not steal from those who have nothing. What about me? Am I yours to control? No. His eyes lock with mine. You are here because you chose to be. You can walk out that door any time. But out there, you are a target. In here, you are safe. That is the difference. And if I leave, then I will handle Marco. I will make sure he never touches you or anyone else again. How? He does not explain. He just holds my gaze. The message is perfectly clear. I do not want to know the details. Luca reaches for a pastry. Vincenzo moves the plate closer to him. The motion is small and natural, like something he has done countless times. He likes you, I say quietly. He should not. Why is that? Because I am dangerous. Vincenzo looks at Luca, and dangerous men have no place around children. You are not dangerous to him, not right now. The words just hang there, cold and final. But I can see the truth in his eyes. He is not afraid he will hurt Luca. He is afraid of caring about him. He is afraid of losing someone else he loves. You cannot keep people safe by pushing them away. I say, yes, I can. No, you cannot. I know, because I have tried. He says nothing. He just sips his coffee. The discussion is finished. But a small change has happened between us. A tiny crack has formed in the wall around him. It is small, but it is there. That afternoon, Vincenzo asks Luca to join him in the music room. I follow them at a distance. I do not want to intrude, but I need to see this. A beautiful grand piano sits in the middle of the room. It is black and gleaming. Do you know what this is? Vincenzo asks. Luca nods. Do you want to play it? Luca looks to me for permission. I nod. He walks to the piano and touches a key with one finger. A single clear note rings out. Vincenzo sits next to him on the bench. Press any key you like. There are no wrong notes. Luca presses another key, and then one more. He creates a simple, random melody. It is clumsy, but it is sweet. Vincenzo watches him, and a faint smile appears on his face. He reaches over and plays a chord, then another. He builds upon Luca's simple tune. They play like that together, without words, just listening to each other. They create something new out of nothing. I watch them from the doorway. My eyes begin to sting with tears. It has been years since I have seen Luca smile so much. And Vincenzo, he almost looks happy. The song finishes. Luca looks up at him, his face shining with pride. You are good, Vincenzo tells him. Would you like me to teach you? Luca nods, full of excitement. Then we will practice every day if your aunt agrees. They both look over at me, waiting for my answer. Okay, I say. My voice is unsteady. That would be wonderful. Our eyes meet for a moment. I see something soft in his expression. Gratitude, maybe understanding. Then it disappears. He stands up. Tomorrow, then. After breakfast. He walks past me and out of the room. I just stand there trying to process what happened. This guarded, broken man is going to teach my nephew how to play the piano. He is offering us safety and kindness. He is giving us things I never thought we would have again, and I have no idea what to do with it. That night, I cannot fall asleep. I go downstairs. The entire house is dark, except for one room. A line of light shows from under the study door. I know I should not, but I walk toward it. I knock gently. Come in. I open the door. Vincenzo is at his desk. He holds a glass of whiskey. Papers are spread out everywhere. He looks completely exhausted. Cannot sleep? He asks. No. You too? Welcome to the club. I come in and sit in the chair opposite him. The quiet between us feels heavy. Why do you drink by yourself? I ask him. Because everyone else is asleep. I am awake. He looks at me then. He really sees me. He pours a second glass and slides it over. I take it and take a small sip. The whiskey is warm and strong. What is keeping you up? Vincenzo asks. Everything. You? The same. Does that help? What? The drinking. Drinking alone doesn't solve anything. He knows that. But it kills time. I put my glass down and lean toward him. Can I ask you a question? He shrugs. Depends on the question. Why are you helping us? He turns the glass in his hand, avoiding my eyes. You remind me of her, he says at last. My wife, Sophia. She was strong, stubborn. She never accepted help from anyone, not even me. And that pride is what killed her. That wasn't her fault, I whisper. His voice turns to ice. She was in that car because I didn't force her to stay home. I respected her independence, and it cost me everything. You can't carry that blame. Why not? He snaps. Everyone else blames me. I don't know what to say. The pain is too fresh. Luca loves the piano, I say, changing the topic. A faint smile touches Vincenzo's lips. He has a gift. You are good with him. I'm trying. It's working. Is it? He looks at me, his eyes filled with exhaustion. Because I feel like I am failing everyone. You are not. I reach out and touch his hand. You have done more for us than anyone. And Luca has not smiled like that in years. You gave that to him. Vincenzo looks down at our hands. He does not pull away. Thank you, he says, his voice low. For what? For not being afraid of me? Who says I'm not? I ask. Are you? I consider it for a moment. No, not anymore. Something in his face changes. He turns his hand over, his fingers wrapping around mine. Warm, strong. You should be, he says. Why? Because I am not a good man. I do not believe you. You do not know me. Then let me know you. The words are out before I can stop them. Vincenzo's breath hitches. His thumb strokes my knuckles, gently. Elena. A loud crash shatters the quiet. Glass breaks. Alarms begin to scream. Vincenzo drops my hand, stands, and pulls a gun from a drawer. Stay in here, he orders. What is happening? Stay here. Lock the door. Then he is gone. I hear shouting, running footsteps, more breaking glass. My heart is hammering against my ribs. I race upstairs to Luca's room. He is sitting straight up in bed, his eyes wide with terror. Come here, I tell him. Now. He scrambles out of bed and runs to me. I pull him into my room and lock the door. We hide inside the bathroom. I hold him tightly. Gunshots explode outside. 3, 4, then silence. The quiet is worse than the noise. The minutes feel like hours. Finally, a knock. Elena. It is me, Vincenzo. I unlock the door. He is covered in blood. His shirt is ripped. There is a deep cut on his cheek. Are you hurt? I ask. It is not my blood. His eyes find Luca. Are you both okay? Yes. What happened? Marco, Vincenzo says, his voice like stone. He sent his men. They are gone now. Gone. He means dead. The word feels heavy in the air. Men died because of us. This is my fault, I say. No. Vincenzo grabs me by my shoulders. This is Marco's fault, not yours. People are dying. They were people who chose this life. They came here to harm you. Do not blame yourself for what they chose. Luca begins to cry. Tears stream down his small face. I kneel and pull him into a hug. Vincenzo watches us, his hands tightening into fists. Blood drips from his knuckles. We cannot stay here, I say. You are right. What do we do? We have to leave. Tonight. I own a place near the coast. Nobody knows it exists. We will be safe there. For how long? As long as it takes. To do what? His eyes meet mine. They are dark, determined, to end this. The drive is 2 hours long. Vincenzo is completely silent. His jaw is clenched. His knuckles are white on the steering wheel. The bleeding on his cheek has stopped, but the cut looks angry. I sit in the back with Luca. He is asleep against my side, his hand gripping my shirt. Another car follows us. Inside are Rafa and 2 other men. They are armed, their eyes scanning the dark road for any threat. The city fades behind us. The buildings are replaced by trees and open fields. Then, there is only darkness. Where are we going? I ask. Somewhere safe, Vincenzo answers. You said the villa was safe. This is different. How is it different? No one knows this house exists, not even my own men. I look out the window. The scenery changes again. We drive through rolling hills and sharp curves. I can smell salt in the air. The ocean? I ask. Yes. The road now runs along the coast. The water is a dark, endless expanse to our left. It is beautiful under the moonlight. He turns onto a narrow, private road. Trees form a tunnel, hiding us from the world. After a short drive, we reach a clearing. A house stands on the edge of a cliff. It is made of stone, 2 stories high. It looks simple, but strong. All its windows face the sea. This was Sophia's, Vincenzo says. She bought it before we were married. It was her escape, a place to think. It is beautiful. She thought so too. He parks the car and comes around to open my door. I carry a sleeping Luca inside. The house is dark, but it is clean. Someone keeps it ready. Vincenzo flips on the lights. The room is warm and inviting. Nothing like the cold villa. This feels like a home. Upstairs, Vincenzo says. There are 2 bedrooms. Take your pick. I carry Luca up the stairs. The first room has a perfect view of the ocean. I gently lay him on the big bed and pull the blue covers over him. He is already sound asleep. I kiss his forehead and go back downstairs. Vincenzo is in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water. His shirt is still stained with blood. His hands are shaking just a little. You need to clean up, I tell him. In a moment. Do it now. Before Luca wakes up and sees you like that. He looks down at his clothes and nods. There is a bathroom down that hall, he says. I will take a shower. I hear the water running. I walk through the quiet house, checking every window, locking every door. It is a habit now, to always look for danger. Rafa knocks. I open the door. He gives me a short nod. We will patrol the grounds, he says. 4-hour shifts. No one is getting past us. Thank you. Do not thank me. Just stay inside. He turns and walks away. I lock the door and go back to the kitchen. I start making coffee. My hands tremble as I pour the water. Tonight could have been a nightmare. Marco's men were in the villa. They had guns. They came to hurt us, and Vincenzo stopped them, with terrible violence, with death. I should feel horrified. I should be making a plan to run. But I am not. I am just tired, and grateful, and so confused. Vincenzo comes back into the room. He wears a clean black t-shirt and gray pants. His hair is still wet. The cut on his cheek is clean now. Coffee? I ask. Please. I pour him a cup. He drinks it black, strong and bitter. Thank you, he says. For what? For not running away? Most people would have. Most people do not have a 7-year-old son to protect. Still, I sit down across from him. The only sound is the ocean outside. What is the plan? I ask. We wait. For what? For Marco to get careless. He will. They always do. And when he does, I will end it. You mean you will kill him? Yes. The word hangs in the air between us. Simple. Final. He does not apologize. Does that bother you? Vincenzo asks. I do not know. You should know. This is who I am. This is what I do. I know what you do. Do you? He leans closer. I kill people, Elena. I hurt them. I take whatever I want, and I destroy anyone who gets in my way. That is my life. That is my world. Is that the world you wanted? The question surprises him. He leans back, staring into his cup. No, he says after a long silence. It was chosen for me. By my father, and his father before him. This life was my destiny before I was even born. But you did not leave. Where would I go? Anywhere. It is not that simple. He looks at me, his eyes full of sorrow. You cannot just walk away from this life. It follows you. It finds you. It destroys everyone you love. The way it destroyed Sophia and Isabella. He winces. The names hurt him. I see the pain on his face, but I do not apologize. Yes, he says. Exactly like that. I am sorry. I should not have said it. No, you are right. He gets up and walks to the window, staring out at the dark water. I killed them, not with my own hands, but my choices, my enemies, my life. It all led to that car bomb, and I could not protect them. I stand and walk over to him. It was not your fault. Everyone says that. But they are all wrong. Vincenzo tells me that Sofia wanted to leave 6 months before she died. She said our life was too dangerous. She wanted to take Isabella and disappear. His voice cracks. And I told her no. I said I had responsibilities. To my family, my men. I chose them instead of her. And she died for it. My own chest feels tight. You could not have known what would happen. I should have listened. I cannot change the past. He turns to face me. But I can change the future. I can change what happens now. I can keep you safe, both of you, even if I have to give up everything. Why? Because I lost everything once before. I will not let that happen again. His eyes search mine, seeking something. Forgiveness, maybe. Hope. I lift my hand and touch his face. My fingers gently trace the cut on his cheek. You are not in this alone, I say softly. Not now. His hand covers mine. It is warm and strong. He closes his eyes, leaning into my touch. You should be afraid of me, he whispers. I am not. You should be, but I am not. He opens his eyes. They are darker now, intense. I can see the real man behind the mask. Elena. Footsteps on the stairs. We break apart. Luca is standing in the doorway. His eyes are red from crying. Come here, baby. I open my arms and he runs to me. I lift him up. He is getting too heavy, but I hold him anyway. Another nightmare? Vincenzo asks. Luca just nods. Do you want to see something? Vincenzo gets up and opens the back door. Come with me. We follow him outside. A path in the garden leads to stone steps cut into the side of the cliff. They go down to a small, private beach. The moon is full. The sand looks like silver. The waves are gentle. It is peaceful and so beautiful. Sofia would come down here when she could not sleep, Vincenzo said. She told me the ocean made everything feel small. It made all her problems and all her fears just wash away. Luca squirms in my arms, so I put him down. He runs to the edge of the water and lets the waves splash his feet. He turns and smiles at us. He likes it, I said. Good. Vincenzo sits on a large rock and watches Luca. This place was her gift to me. She told me that even men like me needed a place to rest. She sounds like she was very wise. She was. His voice is barely a whisper. Too wise to be with someone like me. I do not think so. Why not? Because she loved you. That means something. Or it means she made a terrible mistake. You do not believe that. He does not reply. He only watches Luca. The little boy splashes in the shallow water with a silent, happy laugh. His joy is impossible to ignore. I sit on the rock beside Vincenzo, our shoulders nearly brushing. The night air is cool on my skin, smelling of salt and wind. Thank you, I said. For what? For this moment, for keeping us safe, for caring. I am not doing anything special. Yes, you are. He turns to me and his eyes are softer. For a second, the hard mask he wears is gone. Elena, do not. I just shake my head. Do not push me away tonight. I am trying to do what is right. And what is that? Keeping my distance from you, not pulling you into my world. It is too late for that. It is never too late. Yes, it is. I turn my body to face him. We are already in this, together, and I will not leave. You should. But I will not. His jaw clenches. He looks away, toward the ocean, toward Luca. Anywhere else but me. You are making this more difficult, he said. Good. Elena, stop fighting this. Let yourself feel something for once. I feel too much. That is the entire problem. The words surprise us both. He stands up suddenly and walks toward Luca. I get up and follow him. We stay on the beach for an hour. Luca finds shells. Vincenzo teaches him to skip stones across the water. I watch the two of them, the dangerous man and the quiet child. They seem to belong together, like two broken things that create something whole. Finally, Luca yawns and his eyes get heavy. I carry him back up the stairs to the house. Vincenzo walks behind me, quiet and lost in thought. I put Luca back in bed. He falls asleep immediately this time, looking peaceful. The ocean did its work. I find Vincenzo in the living room. He is by the fireplace, looking at pictures on the mantel. Sophia, Isabella, an entire life in small frames. She would have liked you, Vincenzo said without looking at me. How do you know that? Because you are like she was. Strong, stubborn, and kind, even when people do not deserve it. I am not that kind, you are. He finally turns to me. You could have accepted my money and disappeared, but you did not. You stayed because you could not abandon Luca. That is kindness. That is just survival. No, that is love. The word hangs in the air between us, heavy and difficult. Neither of us knows what to say. I should go to sleep, I said. Elena, wait. I stop and turn around. Vincenzo crosses the room until he stands right in front of me. We are close but not touching. His eyes search my face. I need you to understand one thing, he said. What? This thing between us? It can never happen. Why not? Because I ruin everything I care about. I ruin everyone I love. I will not let that happen to you. You do not get to make that choice for me. Yes, I do. No, you do not. I take a step closer. I am not Sophia. I am not Isabella. I am me. I make my own decisions. Even if they get you killed? His breath hitches. His hand comes up to cup my cheek. His thumb brushes my skin. It is a soft, hesitant touch. You are impossible, he whispered. So are you. We just stood there for a moment. We were just breathing in the same space. The world outside of us disappeared. Then he broke the connection and stepped back. The mask was on his face again. Good night, Elena. Good night. I walked up the stairs with my heart pounding. My skin still burned from his touch. I laid in bed and stared at the ceiling, but I could not sleep. I heard him downstairs, pacing back and forth, unable to rest. We are both haunted by our pasts. We are both broken and fighting a battle we cannot name. I do not know if that will bring us together or tear us apart. The days passed by in a slow rhythm. We ate breakfast as a group. Luca would play on the beach. Vincenzo taught him how to play the old piano in the living room. I cooked using Gianna's recipes. Rafa and his men were always on patrol. The house felt secure and cut off from everything. But the world was still out there, and so was Marco. One morning, Vincenzo got a call. He went outside to answer it. When he returned, his face was a mask of cold anger. What is wrong? I asked. Marco made contact. He wants a negotiation. For what? For you. He wants to trade you for my businesses. My stomach clenched into a knot. What was your answer? I told him to go to hell. Vincenzo, no. His voice was sharp. You will not go anywhere near that man. Ever. But if it could stop this, it will not stop anything. He will kill you as soon as he has you. I am not giving him the chance. So what is our plan? We wait. He will make a move very soon. When he does, I will be ready. How much time? Days. Maybe less. Fear squeezed my chest. What if something happens? Do not. He put his hands on my shoulders. Do not think about what if. Just have faith in me. I will not let him harm you. I trust you. Do you mean that? Yes. His expression changed to one of surprise, then relief. He pulled me into a tight hug. I could feel his heart beating against my cheek. I will not fail you, he whispered. I promise. I closed my eyes. I let myself believe his words, just for a moment. Later that afternoon, Luca and I walked on the beach. The sun was warm, and the water was clear. He discovered a crab under a rock. His eyes lit up with excitement. He showed it to me with great care. "It is beautiful," I said. He nodded, then put the crab back and watched it run away. I sat down in the sand, and he sat next to me. We watched the waves in peaceful silence. Then he did something I did not expect. He took my hand and squeezed it 3 times. I caught my breath. I understood what he meant. Sophia had shown it to me. 3 squeezes mean I love you. I love you too, my sweet boy, I whispered. He leaned against me, feeling safe and happy. I heard footsteps behind us. Vincenzo was walking down the beach with his hands in his pockets. His face looked softer than I had ever seen it. "Is there room for one more?" he asked. Luca nodded and patted the sand next to him. Vincenzo sat down. The 3 of us watched the ocean. The moment was delicate and precious. It felt like it could shatter at any second. "My daughter used to love the beach." Vincenzo spoke softly. "She loved to gather shells and make sandcastles. She believed the ocean held magic." Luca watched him, hanging on every word. "She was not wrong," Vincenzo added. "The water has a certain power. It reminds you how small you are, but also makes you feel like part of something vast." I reached out and took his hand. He did not pull back. He just squeezed it tightly. "She would have liked Luca," I said. "She would have adored him." Luca got up and walked to the water's edge. He found a stick and began drawing in the damp sand. He was focused completely. After a moment, he stepped away and waved for us to come. We walked over to see what he had made. It was a drawing of 3 figures holding hands, with a house behind them and a sun overhead. A family. Tears stung my eyes. Vincenzo's grip on my hand grew stronger. "Is that us?" I asked Luca. He nodded and smiled. Vincenzo knelt down to Luca's level. "Is this what you want? A family?" Luca nodded again, this time with certainty. "Then I will do everything in my power to make that happen," Vincenzo said, his voice thick with emotion. "I give you my word." Luca wrapped his arms around Vincenzo's neck and hugged him with all his might. Vincenzo went rigid for a second, then slowly he embraced him back. I watched the 2 of them, 2 broken people finding solace in one another. Tears ran freely down my cheeks. I made no move to wipe them away. When they separated, Vincenzo stood and faced me. His eyes were also wet. "Elena." A gunshot shattered the peace. The world erupted. Vincenzo pushed me to the ground. I grabbed Luca and pulled him close. A second shot followed, then a third. "Stay down," Vincenzo yelled. He drew a weapon from his waistband and returned fire. Rafa and his men appeared, running. More gunfire. It was pure chaos. I shielded Luca with my body. He was trembling, crying without a sound. I whispered that it was okay, that we were okay. The lies felt like ash in my mouth. Then the shooting stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Vincenzo was suddenly above me, blood streaming from his arm. He had been hit. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." "Luca." I quickly checked him. He had no blood on him, no wounds, only pure terror in his eyes. "He is fine," I said. "Good." Vincenzo pulled me to my feet. "Get in the house right now. Keep away from the windows. You are bleeding." "I am all right." "Go." Rafa ran toward us. "Boss, we got 2 of them. One got away, heading north." "Find him," Vincenzo ordered. His voice was ice. "And be sure he does not report back." "Yes, boss." I took hold of Vincenzo's uninjured arm. "You need a doctor. Later. Now." He looked at me with hard eyes, but then he nodded. "Fine. Inside." We hurried into the house. I made him sit at the kitchen table, found the first aid supplies, and cut his sleeve away. The bullet had grazed him. It was a deep cut, but not fatal. My hands shook as I cleaned the wound. He did not even flinch. He just watched me work. "I am sorry," I said. "For what?" "This. All of it. If I had not, stop. He took my hand. This was not on you. Marco chose this path, this. Now I will choose mine. What is that supposed to mean? It means this is over tonight. A spike of fear went through me. You are going after him. Yes. Let me go with you. No, Vincenzo. No. His grip on my hand tightened. You will stay here with Luca where it is safe. I will deal with Marco. What if something goes wrong? It will not. You cannot know that. I do. He stood up, wincing just a little. I have lived this life for years. I know how these things end. That is not comforting. He almost smiled. Trust me. That is what frightens me. He cupped my face with his hands. His thumb gently brushed my cheek. I will be back. I promise. Do not make a promise you cannot keep. I always keep my promises. He leaned forward until our foreheads touched. We stayed there, breathing together in that fragile, terrifying space. Be careful, I whispered. Always. And then he was gone. He walked out the door and into the darkness, taking my hope with him. I locked the door behind him. I went to check on Luca. He was hiding and trembling under his bed. I crawled in beside him and held him. Vincenzo will handle this. I told him he would protect us. Luca looked at me, his eyes asking the question he could not speak. What if he does not return? He will, I said with force. He promised. We huddled under the bed, listening to the quiet, waiting. The hours crawled by. Each minute felt endless. At last, headlights swept over the walls. A car door slammed, followed by footsteps. I held my breath, my heart racing. Please, let it be him. A knock came at the door. Elena, it is me, Vincenzo. I scrambled out from under the bed, rushed downstairs, and threw the door open. He stood there, alive. He was covered in blood, but he was alive. His eyes met mine. It is finished, he said. Marco is gone. I did not think. I just acted. I launched myself into his arms. He caught me and held me tight. We just stood in the doorway, clinging to each other, breathing. You came back, I whispered. I told you I would. I was so afraid. I know. I am sorry. I pulled away to look at his face. Are you hurt? Nothing serious. Promise. Promise. I touched his cheek, his neck, his shoulders, making sure he was really there. His hands moved into my hair as he stared down at me. His eyes were dark and intense, filled with a desperate, dangerous emotion. Elena, he breathed out, and then he kissed me. The kiss was a storm. It was hungry and desperate, filled with years of pain and solitude. His hands cupped my face, and my fingers dug into his shirt. We met in that doorway like two lost souls finally finding home. He tasted of salt and smoke. His lips were demanding. I kissed him back with all my fear and all my hope. When we finally pulled apart, we were both gasping for air. He rested his forehead against mine with his eyes closed. I should not have done that, he whispered. Yes, you should have. Elena, do not. I leaned back a little. Do not take it back. Not now. I am covered in blood. I do not care. You should, but I do not. He opened his eyes. They were darker than I had ever seen them, full of desire and fear. This will change everything, he said. I know. We cannot undo this. I do not want to. His jaw clenched. His hands slid down to my shoulders. He looked at me as if trying to memorize my face. Go upstairs, he said softly. Check on Luca. I need to get clean. Vincenzo, please, just a few minutes. I nodded and went upstairs on weak legs. My body was trembling. I looked in on Luca. Fear had exhausted him, and he was asleep under the bed. I lifted him onto the mattress, tucked him in, and kissed his head. Then I went to my own room and sat on the bed, touching my lips. They were still burning from his kiss. He was right. Everything was different now. But I did not care. For years I had been careful and afraid, and it had led me nowhere. Maybe it was time to feel something real. I heard the water start running, downstairs in the shower. He was washing away the violence, becoming a man again. I waited, my heart pounding. What was going to happen now? I heard footsteps on the stairs, then a soft knock on my door. "Come in," I called out. The door opened, and Vincenzo stood there. He was in clean clothes, his hair was damp. The blood was gone, but his eyes still held the night's horrors. "Is he okay?" Vincenzo asked, talking about Luca. "He is asleep." "Good." A heavy silence filled the space between us. He stayed in the doorway, and I stayed on the bed. "I am sorry," he said at last. "For what?" "For the kiss. For pulling you into my world. For everything. Stop apologizing." "I cannot." I stood and walked toward him, stopping just before we touched. "I am not sorry. I do not want you to be sorry either. Elena, you need to listen." I put my hand on his chest. I could feel his heart beating hard. "I know who you are. I know what you do. I am not a fool dreaming of a fairy tale." "Then what is this?" "It is real." I looked up into his eyes. "This is messy and frightening, but it is real." His hand covered mine. It was warm and strong. "You deserve more than this. Maybe. But this is what I want. You do not understand what you are saying." "Yes, I do." I moved closer. "I have spent 2 years just trying to survive, to protect Luca. You are the first person who made me feel safe enough to feel anything at all. That is not a good reason. It is the only reason." My voice cracked. "You make me feel alive, even when I am scared and confused. I do not want to go back to just surviving." His breathing hitched. His thumb stroked my knuckles. "I am afraid I will hurt you." "You will. People always do. But I would rather be hurt by something real than be safe with nothing." He looked at me, searching my face for an answer. Then he kissed me again. This time it was slower, deeper. His hands went around my waist, pulling me tight against him. I wrapped my arms around his neck, letting go completely. We stumbled back until my legs touched the bed, and we fell onto it together. His weight pressed down on me. I pulled him closer. I needed him closer. His lips moved from mine to my neck, to my jaw, to my shoulder. Each kiss was a brand, claiming a part of me. "We should stop," he whispered against my skin. "We should, but I do not want to." "Then do not." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes wild and vulnerable. "Are you sure?" "Yes, Elena, I am sure." He kissed me again, slower and more gentle, as if he thought I might break. But I was done being fragile. We made love in the quiet darkness. His hands explored every part of my body. I traced the scars on his skin. Each one was a story of survival. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets. His arm was around me, my head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. "Model, I have not been back since Sophia," he said softly. "You do not need to explain. I want to." He took a deep breath. "After she died, I could not come here. Every time I tried, I would see her face. I felt so guilty, like I was betraying her. But now, I think she would want me to be happy. She would want me to live, not just exist." I traced patterns on his chest with my finger. "She would." "How can you be so sure?" "Because she loved you. Love wants the people it cares about to be happy, even when it is gone." His arm tightened around me. "You are too good for this cruel world." "No, I am just trying to make it through." "You are doing more than just making it through. So are you." We were quiet for a long time. The sound of the ocean came through the window, peaceful and constant. The world outside this room seemed very distant. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. "We return to the villa and start over. Marco is gone. His friends will scatter. We will be safe." "For how long?" I do not know. His voice was truthful. This life is never completely safe. There is always another threat, another enemy. But I will protect you and Luca with my entire being. I know you will. Does that frighten you? A little bit. Good. It should. I looked up at his face. Why? Because you will keep me honest. You will keep me human. I need that. Is that all I am to you? Your conscience? No. He held my face in his hands. You are everything I never knew I was missing. I could not breathe. Vincenzo, I mean it. You and Luca, you brought light back into my world. You made me remember why I fight. What are you fighting for? For this. For us. For family. The words settled between us, full of weight, beauty, and fear. Family, I said quietly. If you want it, I want it. He kissed me again. It was a soft promise. We fell asleep in each other's arms, feeling safe, feeling home. Morning arrived too quickly. Sunlight poured into the room. I woke up first. Vincenzo's arm was still around me. His face was calm and peaceful. He looked younger without his usual mask of control. I slipped out of bed and got dressed. He was still sleeping, holding his blanket. His face was peaceful. I went downstairs and made coffee. I stood at the window and watched the ocean. The waves came in, steady and endless. No matter what happened, the water never stopped moving. I heard footsteps. Arms came around my waist from behind. Vincenzo pulled me close to him and kissed my shoulder. Good morning, he said. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in years. Me too. We stood there together, watching the water in the quiet morning. Everything felt different, lighter. Rafa wants to go by noon, Vincenzo said. We need to be back at the villa before it gets dark. Is that all right? Yes, Elena. I know what you are about to say. That last night changes nothing. That we must remain cautious. That my life is dangerous. I was actually going to say that last night changed everything. And I am not sorry it did. I turned in his arms to look at him. Really? Really? He touched my cheek. I spent 5 years buried in guilt. I pushed everyone away. I built walls around me that no one could get through. Then you and Luca appeared, and suddenly those walls feel pointless. What does that mean? It means I want this. Us. I want to give it a try. My chest felt tight, even though it is complicated. Especially because it is complicated. He smiled. It was a real smile, the first one I had ever seen. Nothing that matters is ever easy. That sounds very wise. Sophia always said that. I guess I learned something from her. I touched his face. She would be so proud of you. I hope so. We kissed, and it was slow and deep. The world became just the two of us. Just this connection. We heard Luca's footsteps thundering down the stairs. We pulled apart. Vincenzo fixed his hair. I straightened my shirt. Luca ran into the kitchen and stopped, looking from me to Vincenzo. His eyes were knowing, like he was older than his years. Good morning, Luca, Vincenzo said. Luca smiled and gave us a thumbs up. Then he went to the table to wait for his breakfast. Vincenzo and I share a look, and we both start to laugh. The tension finally breaks. For the first time, everything feels normal and right. We eat breakfast as a family. Luca uses his hands to tell us about his dreams. Vincenzo and I work together to understand him. We are learning how to be a single unit. After we eat, we pack our things. Rafa arrives with 2 cars, and his men load our bags. The house is cleaned and locked, a beautiful memory left behind. I look at the beach one last time, the place where we became something new. Vincenzo asks if I am ready. I am. The drive home is comfortable and quiet. He holds my hand while Luca sleeps in the back. When we arrive at the villa, the gates are repaired and new guards are on duty. The place looks the same, but it feels completely different. I carry Luca inside, and he stirs awake as we step through the door. He looks around and recognizes the villa. A wave of relief washes over his face. This is his home now. Gianna rushes out to meet us, hugging Luca first, then me. She looks at Vincenzo, and a silent understanding passes between them. It is a look of approval. She welcomes us home with a warm voice. Vincenzo thanks her, and she hums happily as she returns to the kitchen. He carries our luggage upstairs, and I follow with Luca. We walk past the guest room I once used. Vincenzo continues down the hall to a different door. He tells me this is his room, our room, if I want it to be. I look at him, asking if he is certain. He says he has never been more sure about anything. I nod, and he opens the door. The room is large and modern, with a huge bed and windows that look out on the garden. It smells like him, of cedar and soap. Vincenzo explains that Luca's room is connected to ours, so he can always reach us. He thought of everything. He just wants us both to feel safe. I put Luca down, and he immediately begins to explore. He opens closets and tests the bed before giving me a thumbs up. I tell Vincenzo that Luca approves. Vincenzo puts down the bags and takes my hands. He needs me to understand that this is not a temporary arrangement. He is asking me to stay with him forever, to build a life here. My heart feels like it stops. He admits that it is fast and crazy, but he has already wasted 5 years being alone and afraid. He does not want to waste another minute. I ask about his world, about his enemies. He promises to handle them as he always has. But now, he will be doing it with something precious to protect, with someone to come home to. Tears fill my eyes. I am speechless. He just wants me to say yes. I tell him it is not that simple, but he insists that it is. He pulls me close, saying he wants something real. He wants us to try. I look over at Luca, who is watching us with hope in his eyes. It is clear that he wants this too. A real home, a family, and a safe place to live. I turn back to Vincenzo, this man who rescued us and protected us. He opened his heart when he had every reason to keep it sealed shut. I say yes. We will stay. A beautiful, genuine smile spreads across his face. He lifts me from the floor and spins me around. I laugh, a sound that feels new and forgotten. Luca claps his hands in silent celebration, his own smile wide and happy. He runs to us, and we pull him into a hug. The three of us are finally a family. The weeks that follow are peaceful. We settle in. Luca starts at a private school near the villa. Every morning Vincenzo drives him, and every afternoon he picks him up. They talk about Luca's day, and Vincenzo never pressures him to use his voice. I help Gianna around the house, cooking and gardening. These simple, normal tasks feel strange at first, but I get used to them. Vincenzo's business continues in the background. His men come and go for meetings behind closed doors. He keeps that life completely separate from us. He never brings the violence into our home. At night, we are just a family. We eat together, Luca has piano lessons, and we read before bed. Afterward, Vincenzo and I go to our room to talk and hold each other, building a life neither of us ever imagined. Then, one evening about 3 months later, something happens. During dinner, Luca is telling a story with his hands. Suddenly, he stops and looks directly at Vincenzo. He opens his mouth and says a word. Papa. It is quiet and rusty, but there is no mistaking it. The room goes silent. Vincenzo's eyes are wide with shock. Gianna drops a spoon. Vincenzo's voice shakes as he asks what Luca said. Papa, he says again, this time louder and with more confidence. Tears flood Vincenzo's eyes as he stands and walks to Luca's side. He kneels down and takes Luca's small hands in his. He whispers for him to say it one more time. Papa, you are my papa. Vincenzo pulls him into a tight embrace, his shoulders shaking as he cries. This powerful, dangerous man is weeping. He tells Luca through his tears that yes, he is his papa, and Luca is his son. I cover my mouth as my own tears fall. Gianna is wiping her eyes on her apron. The moment is overwhelming and perfect. After 2 years of silence, Luca's first word was for Vincenzo. He pulls back to look at his son and asks how he feels. Happy, Luca says, his voice small but clear. I feel happy. Vincenzo tells him he feels the same way. They hug again, and I join them, wrapping my arms around them both. We all cry together, the kind of tears that wash away the pain and leave only hope. 6 months later, Vincenzo takes me back to the beach house for the weekend. Gianna is watching Luca, so we can have time alone. We needed this time to be just Elena and Vincenzo. We arrive as the sun is setting, painting the sky with orange and pink. Vincenzo takes my hand and leads me to the shore. We walk as the waves wash over our feet. The air smells of salt and new beginnings. He asks if I remember our first time here. I tell him I do. We were broken and scared. Now we are healing. He asks if I really believe that. I stop and face him, telling him yes. He is not the same man who had me brought to him, and I am not the same woman who was too scared to resist. He tells me I was never too afraid. I admit that I was, but he helped me rediscover my own strength. He says I always had it inside me. He just gave me a safe place to use it. We hold each other as the sun disappears. Darkness falls around us, but it feels peaceful, not frightening. Vincenzo tells me there is something he needs to ask. He reaches into his pocket and takes out a small box. My heart stops. Inside is a simple, perfect ring. He says he is not good with words and prefers actions, but he wants to try. He wants me to know what I mean to him. He takes a deep breath. He tells me that Luca and I saved him. We came into his life when he had given up on feeling anything at all. We taught him how to live and love again. Tears stream down my face. I tell him I did nothing, but he insists I did everything. He takes the ring from the box. He says I gave him a reason to be a better man, to protect instead of destroy. He wants to be the man I see when I look at him. I tell him I see a good man. He says he is only trying to be good because of me. He gets down on one knee in the wet sand. Elena Rossi, will you marry me? He asks if I will let him spend his life loving and protecting me, being my family. I am too emotional to speak, so I just nod. He slides the ring onto my finger and stands to kiss me. It is a long, perfect kiss. When we finally part, we are both smiling through our tears. He asks if that was a yes. I tell him yes, 1,000 times yes. He lifts me up and spins me in a circle. My laugh echoes across the water, full of joy. We make love on the beach under the stars, with the ocean as our witness. The wedding is small, with only our family there. Rafa, his men, Gianna, and Luca. We stand in the villa garden. Luca is Vincenzo's best man, and Gianna stands with me. We say our vows, simple words with deep meaning. The priest declares us married and you may kiss your bride. Vincenzo pulls me into a soft kiss that feels like the start of forever. Everyone claps, and Luca cheers with his strong, clear voice. We share a small dinner with music and dancing. Vincenzo and I dance together under the stars. I ask him if he is happy. He says he is happier than he ever thought he could be. I feel the same. I ask if he has any regrets, even about marrying a man like him. He says especially marrying a man like him. He smiles and kisses my forehead. We continue to dance, completely lost in this moment together. Later that night, as we lie in bed, he says my new name, Elena Duca. He tells me it suits me. I was always meant to be his, and he was always meant to be mine. He says that even when he was cruel, I was what he needed. Someone who could see past the monster to the man inside. His arm tightens around me. I thank him for not giving up on me, for staying, and for loving me through everything. Our peace was not in spite of our past, but because of it. He turned to face me, his eyes unguarded and soft. I love you. I love you too. We fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms. We were safe. We were home. 6 months later, a wave of sickness woke me. Vincenzo was by my side in an instant with a glass of water, holding my hair. He asked if he should call a doctor. I told him I was fine. He just looked at me. You do not look fine. I said it must be something I ate, but I knew better. I felt it deep inside. After waiting for 3 days, I finally took the test. 2 solid lines appeared. They were unmistakable and very real. I was pregnant. I sank to the bathroom floor, the test in my hand, tears blurring my vision. They were tears of joy, of fear, of being completely overwhelmed. A soft knock came. Elena, are you all right? I opened the door to find Vincenzo, his face a mask of worry. I just held up the test for him to see. His eyes widened. He looked from the test to my face and back again. Are you? I nodded. He pulled me into an embrace so tight it stole my breath. I did not care. I held on just as tightly. We just stood there in the bathroom, a mess of tears and laughter, stunned by this incredible gift. Another child, he whispered into my hair. A chance to be there from the very beginning. You are a wonderful father to Luca. But this time will be different. I will see it all. I leaned back to look into his eyes. Are you happy, Elena? I am terrified and thrilled and so unbelievably grateful I can hardly think. I laughed. Me too. He knelt before me and pressed his palm to my stomach. It was still flat, but inside, a new life was growing. Our life. Hello, little one, he said quietly. I am your papa, and I swear I will always protect you. I will always love you. You are already wanted more than you can imagine. Fresh tears streamed down my face. This beautiful, healing man was going to be a father again, and he would not miss a single moment. Luca's voice had grown stronger, more self-assured. You are going to be a big brother. His eyes grew wide with shock. Really? For real? Vincenzo confirmed it. There is a baby growing in Elena's belly. Your little brother, or your little sister. Luca threw his arms around my neck, hugging me with all his might before doing the same to Vincenzo. His smile was enormous. I am going to be the very best big brother. I know you will, Vincenzo said. The best. That evening, long after Luca was asleep, Vincenzo and I sat on the balcony, watching the stars. His hand rested on my stomach, a warm, protective weight. I never thought I would have this again, he said. A family. Love. You have it because of us. He kissed me then, a slow, deep kiss filled with promises. Our future was a blank page, but we knew we would write it together. 9 months later, on a warm spring day, our daughter was born. She was small and perfect, with a shock of dark hair and her father's eyes. We named her Sophia Isabella in honor of the two who came before. Vincenzo held our daughter in the hospital, his gaze a mix of awe and terror. An overwhelming love poured out of him as tears ran down his cheeks. He whispered that she was perfect. I agreed. Sophia would have adored her. I know she still does, from wherever she is. He turned to me and said thank you. I asked for what? For giving me this, he said. For giving me everything. I told him he gave me everything first. We sat there with our new daughter between us, our family finally whole. The pain of the past never truly leaves. It just changes, becoming a constant reminder of how much this moment means. When Luca visited, he held his new sister so carefully. He told her about the family waiting to love her. I will always protect you, Luca promised. Later, Vincenzo's hand found mine. 3 squeezes meant I love you. I squeezed back, telling him I loved him too. We brought Sophia home to a nursery Gianna had decorated in pink and white. It was a soft, safe space, perfect for a little girl. That night, I found Vincenzo standing over the crib, just watching her sleep. A gentle, protective hand rested on the railing. I asked if he could not sleep. He admitted he was afraid she would just vanish, that he would wake up and find it was all a dream. I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. After everything we went through, we deserve this happiness. He questioned if we really did. Yes, I told him. He turned and pulled me into his arms. I love you, Elena. I love you too. He reminded me he was not perfect, that he was still dangerous, still broken. I know, I said, but you are mine, and I am yours. Nothing else matters. The kiss he gave me was soft, and it promised forever. It felt like coming home. The years passed quietly. Guards still patrolled the villa grounds, but inside our home, there was only peace. Sophia learned to walk, then to talk, and then to laugh. Luca grew into a strong, kind young man who always watched over his sister. Vincenzo's work changed. It became more legitimate, with fewer enemies at our door. The danger never fully went away. It was a part of who he was. But he built a wall around us, keeping our world safe. For Sophia's 5th birthday, we filled the garden with friends and family. Music played as she ran through the grass, with Luca chasing her, both of them happy and loved. I watched from the terrace until Vincenzo came up behind me. He wrapped his arms around my waist and rested his chin on my shoulder. Just look at them, he said softly. I know. We built this. We did. He asked if I was happy. I turned to face him, studying the new lines around his handsome eyes, the gray at his temples. Elena's story teaches us that healing does not happen in safe, comfortable places. It happens in the arms of someone brave enough to fight for you when you have already given up fighting for yourself. Strength is not about never breaking. It is about letting someone help you pick up the pieces and having the courage to love again when everything inside you says it is not safe. But his eyes were unchanged. They were still dark and intense, and now they were full of love. I am more than happy, I told him. I am home. He said he was, too. We stood there watching our children play, watching the life we had made together. It was imperfect and complicated, but it was real. I asked if he ever thought about the night Marco came to the restaurant. Every day, he answered. Do you regret any of it? Only that you had to endure so much pain to get here. But we got here. That is what matters. He kissed my temple. Yes, we got here. Sophia ran to us then, pulling at our hands. Mama, Papa, come play. We are coming, sweetheart, I said. Vincenzo took my hand, and we walked down to the garden together. We joined our children, our family. The sun set over the villa, spilling golden light across everything. It was beautiful. It was perfect. I looked at Vincenzo, and he looked at me. We smiled. No words were needed. Just love. Just understanding. We were finally home. If Elena and Vincenzo's story touched something deep inside you, leave a comment below. Have you ever found safety in the most unexpected person? Tap that like button if this story stayed with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that love can heal even the deepest wounds. And subscribe so you never miss a story that speaks straight to your heart. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful lessons and inspiration to our audience. Thank you for being here.